Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Don Odell's Legends. I'm Art Tipaldi, the editor of Blues Review magazine, the largest blues magazine in the world. And tonight we're here to speak with a real blues legend, if you will, a foundation of the blues up here in the Northeast of America, Mark Nomad. Mark, welcome tonight.
Thanks, Art.
Yeah. Now, Mark, to say you're a local guy is kind of a misnomer because you've been around this country, but in terms of keeping the blues alive, you've really been carrying the torch, one of the real torchbearers up here in Western New England. I know you had another whole musical life. When did you come back to the blues as Mark Nomad?
Well, in 1987, I was in Chicago on Halstead Street at Chicago Blues, and I sat in with the Jimmy Johnson band, and they wanted to introduce me, and you know, I'm proud of my heritage, you know, but I didn't feel that my name at that time, which is Malucci,
Mark Malucci,
rolled off the tongue, in the manner of the, you know,
yeah.
I mean, Muddy Waters was McKinley Morganfield.
That's right.
Howlin' Wolf was Chester Burnett.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm gonna have a blues name.
Okay.
And I'm really glad I do, because it allows me to, it's not that there's a whole other persona,
yeah,
but it just the way life has been, it's been very good to have this other name.
Separation almost.
And as far as getting back to the blues, well, you know, the blues never really left me. You know, we were talking a few minutes ago about, you know, our paths had crossed. We didn't meet until about 20 years ago, but
right.
40 years ago. Now I'm really dating ourselves,
I know,
but.
Yeah.
40 years ago, when I was in the original Little Village, which I named from the Sonny Boy Williamson song.
That's right. Yeah.
I know you and your wife used to go out and see the band,
right.
and you know that name was a lot of people didn't know where that name came from.
No.
But when I first heard that record, where and then the 20 subsequent takes after, when Sonny Boy uttered the phrase,
right.
Leonard Chess asked him, what's the name of that song?
Yeah.
I'll leave out the expletives,
right.
but he said Little Village.
Yeah.
And we were so struck by that. So we named the band Little Village, and we did a lot of blues.
Yeah.
But I've listened to some recordings from that era, and I almost say it was like blues punk, because we did a lot of blues.
Right.
But because we were writing rock and roll as well, it almost had this little edge to it.
Yeah.
And then and being a songwriter, I find even to this day I'm stretching the blues a little bit, because I think you have to if you're going to tell your truth.
Right. Right.
And you listen to what Muddy did, when you listen to those the Stovall Plantation recordings, he sounds an awful lot like Robert Johnson and Son House,
right?
Because those were his mentors.
That's right.
And then when he went to Chicago, and he plugged in, and they started pushing the volume so the guitars are distorting.
Yeah, right.
And then they start coming into their own thing, and these people were not slavishly
tied to the tradition.
No. They were pushing the music forward,
right,
and I think it's very important to keep the blues alive. With all due respect, I love the classic blues.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important for us who are still telling our stories to push the envelope a little bit, because that's what the masters did.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
When you say now pushing the envelope forward, how do you do that in the 1990s and this new millennium, both through, I mean, you have a double persona, if you will. You're both an electric guitar player and you're a wonderful acoustic guitar player, resonator player. How do you do that how do you breathe new life into some of the classics, let's say as a resonator player?
Well, when I do my solo act, I mean, I will do, some Robert Johnson, some Fred McDowell, Blind Willie Johnson.
Blind Willie Johnson, of course.
And they really informed my slide playing and such. And I will do their standards. But when I kind of sneak in some of my originals, and then lately I've been even bringing in some classic. I've been interpreting some classic tunes, by some other artists, and I think in order to keep the people engaged, You know, I want it to be a journey, a musical journey. So every set has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Okay.
And in between, you know, there's peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And you bring it down, then there's something rousing.
Right.
And you know, some of the stuff I do is very, very. I try to get it as close as I can
to the traditional.
To the traditional.
The music that you love.
Yeah.
And that's important too, because you've got fans out there who might hear you do Blind Willie Johnson and you always explain who the song, you know, who it comes from. Somebody may never have heard Blind Willie Johnson and think, wow, I really like that.
You know, speaking of Blind Willie Johnson, I remember the very first time I heard him. It was in the late '80s, and you could buy cassettes.
Yeah.
You know, back in those days,
Right.
CDs hadn't quite made
Yeah.
it yet, and I bought this cassette compilation called, it was, if I'm not mistaken, something like Knives, Bottle and Steel, or
Okay.
something like that. And it was a compendium of slide guitar masters. Tampa Red was on it, and you know, Son House,
Yeah.
Robert Johnson.
Yeah.
So Blind Willie Johnson comes on. You know, and it might have been dark was the night, cold
yeah,
was the
yeah,
ground.
yeah.
I literally pulled the car over to the side of the road.
Really?
I had to stop the car.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't even drive. I was like, my God.
Yeah.
I'd never heard anything, and I had, you know, seen so many wonderful bluesmen and listened to so many records, but he had escaped my notice.
Yeah, yeah.
And he recorded like in 27, 28, and it sounds like it was last week.
Right. Yeah.
So I was going, and but he did not sing blues.
No,
he
no,
was
no.
a gospel guy.
Singer, yeah.
But he sounded like, and he was from Texas, but he sounded like he was from Mississippi.
Yeah.
And he played the.
So haunting.
And there's two pictures of him, I guess, but they don't show him playing slide. So there's still, some people think he played it on his lap.
Yeah.
Some people think but he is, it's chilling.
Right. What's the process when you go to someone like him to learn his music? For you, for someone who is as obscurely cataloged, if you will, as him.
And since the ensuing 20 plus years, he has become much better known.
That's right.
A lot of
That's
people
right.
know. In fact, they had sent some time capsule into outer
That's
space.
right. I forgot,
And
yeah.
and Dark Was the Night is
Yeah.
on that, so
Yeah.
that if anybody ever makes contact with this capsule from the planet Earth,
That's what they're
they
gonna
put a
hear.
few cultural things in there
Yeah.
to see where we were coming from.
Right, right.
And yeah.
What's the process of learning his music for?
Well, you know, it's got to be a song that I dearly
pre-YouTube.
love, and that really speaks to me. You know, resonates with me.
Yeah.
And I'll see, can I pull this off? I mean, that's the first thing you do. Is
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if I can pull this off. And
Yeah,
I remember I learned "God Don't Never Change," and it was
That's
on
right,
my "Got to Carry On" record. It took me a long time.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on there, but. And to this day, I would like to do "Motherless Children."
Right.
You know, I'd like to do "Nobody's Fault But Mine."
Yeah, yeah.
Because his versions of these are just incredible.
Right.
They're just chilling. And he had a sad life. He had a very, very sad life.
Yeah, yeah.
But he really has influenced directly and indirectly just countless people from his his music.
Are you able to take some of that acoustic music and get it across with your full band? Does that?
Well, you know, I think that's a very interesting question because Blind Willie has also, and his like, but he has really influenced my songwriting.
Okay.
And I've written several songs that I would never have written had I not really embraced Blind Willie.
Wow. Yeah.
Now we got together last night to just run down the set that we're going to do tonight, and there's a song on my latest record, Torch Tones.
Right.
The song is called "The Waiting."
Okay.
And it's in open D, which was Blind Willie's key, and it's really, in fact, when I was going to write lyrics to the song, I couldn't do justice, so I hummed.
Like he does.
Like he did on
That's
that
right.
Dark as the
That's
Night.
right.
And I
Yeah.
just hummed because
Yeah.
there were no words that could live up to the music.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was going to use a little signature from that song in between an Elmore James tune and another one of my originals.
Yeah.
And I started playing it, and the guys jumped in.
Oh boy.
Well, I said they gently because it's a kind of an ethereal song.
Yeah.
So they didn't jump in so much as they stuck a toe in the water and just waiting in the water.
Yeah.
And it was almost like that kind of experience. And we're going to do it tonight.
Oh, great. What does that do to you as as an artist, songwriter, when you hear the other people in your band hear what you're doing and then come in like that?
For me, last night, we had a wonderful rehearsal,
Run through,
although there were times when I would say, that's why they call it rehearsal,
Yeah,
because
right,
I felt like
right.
I had
Yeah,
sausages
yeah,
for fingers.
yeah.
And, but that to me was the most moving, poignant moment of the rehearsal. It was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
We're going to run through this set, and we ended up doing a song that they had not played on.
Right.
And they were moved to want to be a part of it.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's funny. We just saw on the Blues Cruise, we saw Derek and Susan with their band, and I was watching him because I was going to talk to him later in the week, and I noticed in his solos he has his eyes closed, but he gives this little smile every now and then. And I said to him, "So Derek, what makes you smile during a solo?" And he said, "When I hear somebody in the band do something, that makes me smile. You know, when I'm doing a solo." And I thought about what you just said. You must have just smiled internally to hear that something you were doing moved these other musicians to want to be part of it.
Well, that's a special thing that doesn't occur all the time when you're playing with other musicians. And if you think, I'll make a sports analogy.
Yeah.
You think about the all-star basketball team. You got all these hot doggers out there, and they're all the best in their positions and the various teams.
Yeah.
But the number one, the team that's leading a division, more often than not could beat that team.
Yeah.
Because they've only got one star.
Right.
But it's a synergy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you sometimes I'm in a lot of jam situations, and sometimes there's musicians that are there to hot dog.
Right.
And then other times there's musicians who are listening.
Yeah.
And bringing something.
Wow.
And we had this experience last Friday night. We were at this place called Liston's.
Yeah.
And which is one of the hill towns, Worthington, wonderful club. And a guitar player named Tom Filio showed up. And he sounded great, and he listened to what we were doing, and he sent me an email. He says, he says, I went on this thing, and you guys were right there with me. And probably even more importantly, or as important, I should say, the audience and the performer.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if audiences understand the power that they have.
Yeah.
And it's not like a power thing so much as if they are moved.
Right.
Their collective energy comes back
through.
100-fold to the artist, and you are lifted and moved to go beyond your ability. And I'm sure